Dude, that's you read my mind right there at the end where you kind of touched on just the discipline required. I have a massive respect and appreciation for people that do bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a bodybuilder. I've never really gotten into bodybuilding. But like you mentioned, it's just that it's. I feel like with running, which is obviously more of my niche, is like I'm used to just going out and putting in a hard effort
Yeah.
for like the workouts for the physical aspect. And then the diet, obviously, like I try to have a good diet and eat
Yeah.
well and eat whole foods and eat enough calories and stuff. But it just doesn't have to be as dialed in and on point as it does with bodybuilding. So again, I just have a massive respect for that sport as a whole. Do you feel like you'll ever do another bodybuilding show? Do you have any desire to do that?
I kind of want to do a show purely just to see how my physique has changed from all this functional stuff and this running. For example, like from all the running, which I've been, for reference, I've been running for about like 3 years now. And I used to hold a lot of fat in my glutes, used to have a fat ass, and
Oh, fucking
and used to hold a lot
absolute
of
unit up on
absolute
Brock.
unit. And I used to hold a lot of fat in my legs. And now from all the running, I've like lost my ass and my legs are a lot thinner. They still
Maddie
have
probably doesn't
muscle
like
to
that.
them. No, she doesn't. There's there's still some fat to them, but it's just interesting how my physique's changed. I've, definitely got a thicker core, which isn't as, washboard style as you might want for bodybuilding. But as far as like athletically, I think I look, better in some aspects and different in others. And so interesting in that aspect. And then another thing that I've kind of teased with Maddie recently is after I run this 100-mile ultra race, I think I want to still, do a 50K or 50 miler each year. But I kind of just want to do like 100 miler and kind of get out of the ultra running space for a bit, just because one, I don't have any aspirations, I think, to do the whole 200 and keep going. Of course, I say that, who knows?
That's a
But at
slippery
least it
slope.
is a slippery slope. It is a hell of a drug. But I want to get that 100 miler in, and then I kind of want to get back to a little bit of bodybuilding training, not to compete, but purely, it's just fun, man. Like, it's simple enough because with bodybuilding, you're chasing a nasty pump. So you're just trying to pump blood, feel as great as possible. You're still doing a lot of strength work. You're still doing bench squat, deadlift. You're still doing overhead press. You're still doing hard exercises. But the goal is just go in there, push yourself hard, push close to failure. You're not just maxing out everything, but you're pushing close to failure. You're pumping blood. You're isolating things. You're focusing on stretch, range of motion, all these things. And you can just go in there and just push yourself versus, with some of this conditioning stuff and CrossFit and a little bit whatever you want to call that I've been getting into and strength training, it's, more percentages. It's more, timing. It's more, all right, set up the clock. It's EMOM. It's circuits. And that stuff can be fun and it is fun. But sometimes I just want to go in there and just kind of be like meathead and have fun and get a good pump and feel great. I don't want to have to check what my RPE is or my percentages. It like puts like the science added to it, takes the fun out a little bit, if that makes
I
sense.
think I always say that strength training and lifting is good. It feels good. It's good for your body, and then running is good for your mind.
Yeah, that's a good way
Because
to
I
put
think
it.
there's definitely a mental clarity that comes from running, and I'm sure you can get it from lifting as well. Like you talked about, in high school when you first started getting into it, where you can go in and you can just put music on and dial in and just be in your own world. But I do think that running or just endurance sports in general can offer more of mental gains
Yeah.
than strength training can. Would you agree with that, or has
Yeah,
that been your
yeah.
experience?
Yeah, what running does is it forces you to be hyper focused on the present moment, which is really rare to happen because a lot of times we're thinking about work, we're thinking about life, about your spouse, about what work you got to do, like I said later, and we get distracted by the future moments, but we're not living in the future, right? And so what running forces us to do is be very present in the moment. We can't have our phone out, although you and me both post content on our phone when we're running sometimes, but for the most
It's such
part,
a
the
small percentage of our runs, though.
exactly, exactly. So for the vast majority of your run, if not the entire run, you don't have your phone, you don't have technology. You might have little headphones, but you're completely isolated and fixated, and your mind is fixated on the present moment, on, the activity that you're doing, on your surroundings. And there's a beauty in that solitude, in that peace, and then in that, isolation and kind of sensory deprivation from all the external stimuli we deal with every day. And so I like that you mentioned that it is very much a mental exercise because it does bring such clarity. You can get some of that with lifting, but what I found is a tip is, go in airplane mode on your phone. If you're going to go in the gym, go airplane mode, take out, the Wi-Fi, download your playlist, and that way you don't get notifications, you don't get Instagram popping up on your phone. If you try and open up YouTube or Instagram, it won't work. That's what you want, because you want to be able to just focus in on the task at hand. And not only will you have a better workout, you'll get it done a lot faster. The only thing I'll say with lifting that you can't get into that isolated state as frequently or as easily is you have to have rest times. Running, you're always running. You might have some rest periods if you're doing like some track workouts or whatever, and you have some easier paces, but for the most part, your legs are always moving. You don't stop. And so, but with lifting, you're supposed to stop so you can put, max effort into each set. And so because you have those rest periods, sometimes you can kind of lose track of time or get distracted or start talking to somebody in between a set. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to lock in the same way that you can during a run.
So what made Brock, the meathead, the cut up bodybuilding Brock, want to get into running? Was there a specific moment where you want to just dive into it, or what did that whole process look like?
I don't even know, to be honest. Looking back, I always hated running like most people. I was like, why would someone do this for fun? This is pretty stupid. But I actually did a 10K before the pandemic. There's this really popular avenue in Richmond called Monument Avenue, and it has it got taken down, but the Robert E. Lee statue and a bunch of other statues, Arthur Ashe, a bunch of people kind of specific to the Virginia area typically. Anyway, they always do a 10K around there. It's sponsored, blah, blah. It's a big race. Besides the marathon, it's a pretty big race in the area. And, I was like, let me try this 10K. And at the time, I thought that was the longest thing I've ever seen. I was like, 6 miles. That's crazy. The most I've ever ran is 2 miles or something like that. And I was again, a freshman. I was actually, this was I think months. Yeah, this was months before my bodybuilding show. So I was just kind of using it as extra fun cardio because I always felt like the cardio running was burning more calories, or it was harder than my usual cardio. Cardio for bodybuilding and just to lose weight looks like this. It looks like Stairmaster. It looks like incline walk on a treadmill. Minimal effort, not that intense, although the Stairmaster is intense, but incline walk on treadmill or a slow cycle bike, it's not that intense. You're just trying to burn calories. That's the goal. Suffer not that much, just burn calories. Not only because who wants to suffer, but also because you don't want to add more fatigue and stress on your legs if you got to train them the next day, right? So lightweight or light intensity cardio. But running for me was a fun little thing I'd mix in there just because I felt like it was kind of hard. I'd run a mile or two, and that would be part of my cardio regimen. So I kind of got into running a little bit like that, super short distance. It'd be a mile or two or 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever I do. Did the 10K, and I was like, man, I finished the 10K, and I remember having a little bit of a tear stream down my face, on the last mile, just because I was like, man, I never thought I could run 6 miles. And growing up as a chubby kid, I just felt I don't know, it was a moment of realization. I was like, man, I've come a long way. I'm not the kid that used to feel insecure or picked on or whatever for being chubby or looked down upon, whatever. And
There's so much confidence that can come from
exactly
training.
From training, from like I said, manipulating your body. All of it comes from that. And so anyway, I did the 10K and didn't really think much of it. Did the bodybuilding show in that winter. So that was in the spring. Did the show in the winter. Pandemic happened, and I was like, oh, gyms are kind of shutting down. And at this time, I was dropping out of college as well, which we could kind of dig into. And I was going to pursue more of my freelance work and also pursue opening my gym and all this stuff. So it was this moment of a lot of things changing and going on. And I don't even really remember. I think it was seeing some hybrid athletes like a Nick Bear, these different people that I've seen on Instagram. And I was like, oh, these are some kind of jacked guys that are running. And I was like, let me try this running stuff a little bit. So I got into that, and one thing after another. You know how the drug is. You start running 1 mile, then you're like, let me try 2, let me try 4, let me try 6, and it's just amazing. You see like, wow, I can actually run this far, and you start to fall in love. Another big inspiration, like everybody else, David Goggins, right? You listen to that podcast and you want to run through a brick wall like the Kool-Aid Man, and so like listening to that, I was like, man, this ultra stuff sounds absolutely absurd, but let me try a marathon. And so kind of started training there, and then closer to running a marathon, I fell in love with the whole kind of ultra running space, more into Cam Hanes, Courtney Dauwalter, just exploring the whole sport and genre that is ultra running and ultra endurance. And just got hooked mainly because of to kind of answer your question, at least later on in my journey, is I fell in love with the mental aspect of it, as we referenced, more than the physical. Mainly because I thought physically I was never going to be a great runner. One, I kind of resist speed workouts, still do. And and two, I was like lifting, so I felt like I was never going to be an elite runner because I was like, lifting, and I wasn't going to give that up, and I never had any endurance background, blah, blah, blah. But I thought I could bridge the gap mentally, not to like be an elite runner, but like I could make up for any physical deficiencies with mental toughness, with mental resiliency. And if I could just be harder mentally and through the running become harder mentally, I could just be better in all areas of my life. And so, trying to run just an extra mile this week, just an extra mile that week, started to become, my addiction.